There is a kind of praise that warms you and weighs on you at the same time. The warmth of being called a blessing. Someone comes to your door when their hands are empty. Someone finds their way back to you when their world has fallen apart. And you open that door every time, because it feels like love. But what if it was never love at all? What if it was just need, dressed in the most beautiful words you had ever heard? This story is about something most of us have never thought to question. We were taught that giving is love. We were told that an open hand is a sign of strength. We were raised to believe that the more people need you, the more you matter. But sometimes the most important thing a person can learn is the difference between being seen and being useful. Because there is a kind of praise that sounds like love but asks nothing about you. There is a kind of need that calls your name every season. And goes completely silent the one day your basket is empty. This is the story of a woman named Tamar. She lived in a village where the roads were dry and the harvests were uncertain, but one thing never changed. When anyone ran out, they knew exactly whose door to find. Tamar was not wealthy. She was not powerful. But everyone in that village knew her name. And they called her something even better than famous. They called her a blessing. And Tamar believed them. Because when she gave, something in her went quiet, a restlessness she could not name settled, briefly, like dust after footsteps. She told herself this was purpose. She told herself this was enough. She did not yet know that being called a blessing and being truly seen are not the same thing. And she would not know, until the season her basket finally ran dry, and she waited, in the silence that followed, for someone to ask how she was. Nobody came. If this story already feels familiar. If something in the first few words made you pause, then stay with us. Every story on this channel is built for the person who gives quietly, feels things deeply, and rarely hears anyone ask if they are okay. If that is you, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. And if someone in your life needs to hear this today, share it with them. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is hand someone the words they could not find themselves. Now let us get back to Tamar. Tamar's day began before the sun finished rising. She would walk the narrow paths between the fields while the air was still cool, her baskets already packed, her hands already moving. The grain she carried was heavy. She never complained about that. Complaining was not something Tamar did. Neither was stopping. The village knew her rhythm the way it knew the seasons. When Tamar appeared on the road, faces changed. Shoulders dropped. Breath slowed. People saw what she was carrying and something in them relaxed, the way a child relaxes when a parent walks into the room. Eliezer was usually the first. He would be waiting near the edge of the road, his knees already lowering before she reached him, his hands already open. His tunic was worn thin at the elbows. His eyes carried the particular desperation of a man who had run out of options and knew it. He never greeted her first. He went straight to the need. And Tamar would set down her basket, scoop out what she could, and place it into his trembling hands without a word. Behind him, Milcah would be standing. She always stood a little apart, as though she was trying not to take up too much space. She held her small basket in front of her like an apology. Her eyes were soft and sad and grateful, but they were always looking at the basket, never quite at Tamar. She would say thank you in a voice so quiet it was almost only breath. Then she would turn and follow Eliezer home. Nahshon came less often, but when he came, he brought the baby. He never asked directly. He would simply hold Gad out slightly, the way you hold a lantern toward a dark path, and the child's small pale face would do the rest. Tamar could never look at that baby and say no. She was not sure anyone could. She would give what she had, and Nashon would nod once, slowly, and leave without looking back, and then there were others. A widow with a leaking roof. A young man whose family had moved away. An old woman who sat alone most days and only brightened when Tamar passed her door. Each one called her something when they left. Generous. Faithful. God sent. A blessing. The word followed her home every evening. And every evening it settled over her like a warm cloth, comforting at first, then slowly, without her noticing, a little heavier than before. She would set down her empty baskets and stand in the quiet of her own home. She would look at her hands. She would try to remember if anyone had asked, that day, whether she was tired. Whether she had eaten. Whether anything in her own life was hard. She could not remember. But she told herself that was fine. She had been called a blessing so many times that she had forgotten to ask whether any of them had ever called her by the quieter name, the one that simply meant a person worth knowing. That season, the harvest was poor. It was not a disaster. No storms came. No fire swept through the fields. It was quieter than that, just a slow thinning, the kind that sneaks up on you the way winter does. The grain came in light. The baskets filled only halfway. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Tamar had nothing left to give after she had taken care of herself. She did not go out on the road that week. She stayed home and waited. Not with bitterness. Not with any kind of test in her heart. She waited the way you wait after asking a simple question, openly, honestly, willing to hear whatever answer came. The road outside her door stayed quiet. Eliezer did not come to ask how she was managing. Milcah did not stop by with even a small loaf from her own basket. Nashon did not appear at her gate. No one from the village walked the path to her door that week to say, "We heard things are hard for you. We wanted to check. We wanted to sit with you for a while." The silence was not loud. That was the strange thing. It was just empty. And in that emptiness, something in Tamar finally went still. She sat beside her basket on the floor of her home, in the low light of late afternoon, and she looked at it for a long time. Half full. Enough for herself. Nothing to spare. And she understood. Not in a rush. Not with tears. The understanding arrived the way dawn arrives. Slowly, without asking permission, until everything was lit and she could no longer pretend she had not seen. Every face came back to her. Eliezer's open hands. Milcah's downward eyes. Nashon's steady nod. The widow. The old woman at the door. All of them warm when she was giving. All of them gone when she was not. None of them cruel. None of them even aware of what they were doing. They had not seen Tamar. They had seen what Tamar carried. She sat with that truth until it stopped hurting quite so sharply. Then she stood up. She filled her own basket first. Slowly, carefully, without guilt. And when it was full, she noticed something she had been too busy to see before. There were one or two people in the village who had always been quiet around her, not because they needed nothing, but because they never wanted to add to her load. They had always been there. She had simply never had anything left to give them her full attention. She went to them first now. She began to give differently after that. Not less. Just differently. With choice behind it. With enough left over to still be herself at the end of the day. And slowly, she stopped being invisible to the people who had always truly seen her. You are not a service. You are a person. And the moment you begin to live that way, the ones who were always really there will finally be able to reach you. If something in Tamar's story felt familiar, if you recognized yourself somewhere in it, then this channel was made for you. Every story here is for the person who gives and rarely stops to ask what they need. Press like if this reached you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. You deserve to be seen. We'll see you in the next story. Thank you for supporting this channel.